ברוכים הבאים. Welcome to Kolel Baruch Havat Israel. Be'ezrat Hashem, today, Tuesday, twice as good. Parashat Vaera, Partners in Torah Foundation. As usual, Be'ezrat Hashem, we want to say first and foremost, Rafua Shelema to Tzachi, Yitzchak ben Gula Glit, Ori Or ben Anat, Baruch Chai ben Chaya Miriam, Zehbit bat Tova, יצחק בן אלה, פינחס בן רחל, קרן בת עליזה, שולמית בת ציפורה, בתשבע בת עזיזה, בעזרת השם, הצלחה to everybody else, רפואה שלמה, אינה רפאנה להם, and בעזרת השם, in memory of my father and my mother, Nisim and Rachel, my brothers, בעזרת השם, Meir, Abraham, and Yaakov, and בעזרת השם also in honor of Mishpachat Zamir, their daughter, Be'ezat Hashem, may she have Gan Eden, Be'ezat Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Yizakeh Ota, LeGan Eden, Rotem, Bat Simcha V'Moshe, Zechron Tzadik Livracha. Okay, so Be'ezat Hashem, we wanted to have the opportunity to try to explain what this parasha is all about. There's a lot of beautiful secrets to it. This parasha, by the way, is the parasha that has the 7 plagues, and the next parasha will have the 10 plagues. This parasha is the second parasha of the book of Shmot, of Exodus, Parashat Vaera. The Torah says, Vaydaber Elohim el Moshe, Vayomer olav ani Adonai. Hashem speaking to Moses and says to him, I'm God. It's a very odd kind of statement, if we may, but what does it really mean? So we know Moshe Rabbeinu, in the last parasha, in Parashat Shemot, he actually was instructed to go to the people of Israel, and he very much asked on behalf of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to understand that they're about to be redeemed, and he went to Pharaoh and told him that it's time to let the people go. And of course, Pharaoh says, you have time to think about that, let's make their life even worse, and do not supply them anything they need in order to meet the quota of the 400 bricks that they needed to build every day. And for the missing one, Pharaoh instructed his so-called servant to take Jewish Hebrew babies and put them in the wall instead of the bricks. So Moshe was very, very upset with that, of course. Moshe Rabbeinu says to Hashem, Lama hari'ota lahem. Hashem, why did you make it worse for them? You know, Moshe Rabbeinu was the first one to complain to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Moshe Rabbeinu, as we know, is the 26th generation of the Hebrew people. Because you know, from Adam to Noach, there were 10 generations. And from Noach to Abraham, there was 10 generation, and from Abraham to Moses is the 6th generation. So 26th generation. Hashem says to Moshe, I want you to know, for the past 26 generation, nobody ever complained until you came. You know, the word lama in Hebrew, it means why. Moshe is really challenging HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Even though HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to him, listen, I want you to know that when I spoke to Abraham, to Isaac, to Jacob, to Noah, to Adam, nobody complained. They went through a lot of problems. And they never doubted me. They just did what I told them to do. And I promised them the land of Israel. And they never complained. The word lama, why have you done so, really is the first time the Torah uses this kind of word. We know we have already 13 portions, parashot in the Torah, 12 of Bereshit, the 1 of Shemot. And on the 13th one, Moshe asked, Lama, why? So, you know, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I want you to know, before my name was El Shaddai. When I spoke to them, they knew me by one name, El Shaddai, which is a combination of actually 2 names, El and Shaddai. By the way, Shaddai is also Shamar Dai, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when I said something, that's it, you cannot question it. Even in creation, when God created the world, Hashem says to creation, everything that he created, it was something that can continue to be created, continue to grow, evolve, to do everything that they need to do. Hashem, when he created the world, he says Shaddai, Shaddai, Amar Dai, enough, for example, when he created the ocean, when he separated the earth from the water on Tuesday, he said to the water, remain here in this position, which is 72%, and the earth will be 28%. And for eternity, that's how it's going to be on earth. 72% water, no matter all the, some sort of agenda or whatever the case may be, the water will always be 72% and the earth will be 28%. Shaddai, that's Amar. And of course, Shaddai in Gematria is 314. It's allude really to the formula of pi, 3.14, and so on and so forth, that you can measure everything in the world. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to him, I want you to know they never complain. Hashem uses the word Vaidaber Elohim. Elohim is actually a name of judgment. When God created the world in this world, our world is, by the way, is not the first world was created. The Gemara will tell us in Masechet Sanhedrin that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created 1,000 worlds before our world. All of them were created with the judgment attribute. Din, Elohim. And when he wanted to create none of them wanted to receive the Torah. And when he created this world, this is the only world that wanted to receive the Torah. So he created it also with the attribute of emet, of truth, which is attribute of mercy. Adonai is mercy, Elohim is judgment. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu now is actually rebuking Moshe. And he says to him, how can you complain? Nobody complained before, but Moshe actually, is the only one that taught us something amazing. HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this parasha says, V'yeda'atem ki ani Adonai. You should know that I am God. Not believe, you should know. Moshe on that merit says, I want to understand, I want to know, so I can explain better to the people. The Jewish religion is the only religion that people have the ability to ask questions. Any other religion, you're not allowed to ask questions. Christians, you'll be removed from a church, you'll be removed from a mosque, in some cases even worse. Hashem says, know me. When Moshe Rabbeinu was speaking to Hashem after many times in the burning bush, he asked Hashem, how should I tell them your name is? Who you are? What are you? What should I tell them? What's your name? And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Eheye asher eheye, I'll be anything, meaning that the entire universe, us, creation, everything we say is really in Gematria is actually 26. Speaking of Yud He Vav He, 26. In English, the word God is also 26. G-O-D, G7, O15, D4. Really 26, no coincidence. Moshe Rabbeinu says, Lama hariot alahem. Why did you make their life worse? HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in the word of Elohim, is judges Moshe and punishes him. Elohim is really an acronym. Amarta lama hariot alahem Yoshua machnisam. It's an acronym, says, you ask why, because of you doubting me and actually trying to change Sidrei Olam, trying to change what I have decided. For that, you will not enter the land of Israel, Joshua will. Moshe Rabbeinu, and with humility, I say that he had, the Gemara will tell us, 6 sins that because of them, he did not merit to come to the land of Israel. And this is one of them here. And of course, the word Va'era, the second, the Kadosh Baruch Hu this week, Parasha Va'era, is also an acronym, Ani Rishon ve'ani Acharon. I'm the first one to be, and I'll be the last one to be. And there is nobody else, meaning that's the only God, the true God of the people of Israel and in the world. Even for the Gentile, they are blessed, the one that believe in God. So we see here that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is basically rebuking Moshe, but he also allow him to understand what's going on. Hashem says, V'gam ani shamati, and I also heard. So what did Hashem also hear? So the Gemara will tell us that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for the first time, he heard the people of Israel praying for each other. Because, you know, when the Torah says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu heard something amazing here, what did he hear? It says, Vegam, and also, I heard et na'akat b'nei Israel. You know, na'akat, the word na'akat, in also, if we rearrange the letters, kin'at, jealousy. This is the first time since the whole coming down of the people of Israel to Egypt was over jealousy. The 10 brothers were jealous for Yosef. Yosef Gimatria Kin'ah, jealousy, 156. He saw HaKadosh Baruch Hu now, I saw something else, which didn't happen until this point. The people of Israel prayed for each other and had mercy on each other. And actually, the Gemara will tell us when a person prays for somebody else, they will be answered first. And of course, we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu now says, I heard that. I heard that they prayed for each other. What happened here? So we know, we mentioned before, Moshe was very upset over what he saw. He saw that Paro, the wicked Paro, which is part of Canaan, he actually slaughtered 150 babies, Hebrew babies, every day in the morning and 150 every day in the evening, and he bathed in their blood. This little midget, a black, less than 60 centimeter tall, the Gemara will tell us in Moed Katan, he actually was murdering babies, slaughtering them, and bathing in their blood. He had Tzara, the leprosy, and his so-called Khartoumim, his so-called wise men, told him to do that. This is really crazy stuff. And the people of Israel were so sad that they cried at the way that they actually prayed for each other for this to stop. So nobody's else children will be part of this. And of course, also Moshe Rabbeinu saw that babies were put in the walls instead of bricks. And Moshe wanted to save these babies, and he called upon Hashem. And Hashem says, you don't understand how this world is created, rather you act on sense versus intellect. And Kadosh Baruch Hu says, when I created this world, everything had a reason. Whatever you see, it's not really what it is. What you see, there is something on the back end that you don't really understand from creation. What does it mean? So, you know, Moshe Rabbeinu asked Hashem to let him save the babies. Hashem says, no, you don't understand who they are. This neshama put to death by Egypt in the course of 3 years and 4 months, there were all two groups of people that actually the group was the people of the Mabul, the flood, that sinned so bad. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to restore the neshamot to the heavens. And by dying as babies, they will be actually part of the Hebrew and Jewish people. The other group of babies that were put into the wall, those are the people from Dor HaPalaga, from the generations of the Tower of Babel that went against Hashem. Hence, it was a measure for measure. They wanted to build bricks, and they came back and punished by bricks. Moshe did not understand that. Hashem let him save one baby named Micha. This Micha, Moshe called him Micha, Mika Mocha Ba'elim Hashem, how great are you? But in a sense, Moshe did not understand this baby who is going to be in the future. He thought, listen, this is a baby, I need to have mercy, save him. You know, sometimes you save a baby, could end up being Hitler, or Saddam Hussein, or Gaddafi, or Bashar Assad, or any of those, or Ayatollah, just a baby, right? Hashem says, you have no understanding who you saved. You know, in days to come, this little bit Micha, Moshe will take him with him like a son. And when he went to take the bones of Yosef out of the Nile that the daughter of Asher, Serach, revealed to him. By the way, Serach is one of the 10th that went to the heaven alive, just like Batia, just like Eliezer, the servant of Abraham, just like Hiram, Melech Tzidon, just like Yoshua Halevi, of course, Mashiach, Eliyahu Navi. There is 10 people that went to the heavens alive. And when Moshe Rabbeinu went to get the casket, he wrote on the gold task, he wrote, Ale Shor Ale, rise, axe rise, and on the other side he wrote Shem Hashem HaMeforash, the name, the holy name of Hashem, and the casket that was made out of metal, weighed about 500 kilos, rose from the middle of the Nile. Because, the Egyptian put Yosef in the Nile because when he was there, every time he walked to the Nile rose and walked towards him. The water rose. Hence, Moshe Rabbeinu is taking the bones of Yosef, just like the people of Israel promised Yosef as he swore them to a vow to take his bones and bury him in Israel. When he threw this gold task, the casket rose, and Moshe took the bones of Yosef and brought him with him in order to take them out of Egypt, to bury in Israel, in Shechem. This gold task, Micha stole it. And by the way, Micha later on will participate in the creation of the golden calf. The people of the era of Rav, the people that came out from Egypt with Moshe and the people of Israel, Moshe took them out because Moshe is the reincarnation of Hevel. And Hevel, as we know, when he was murdered by Cain, Hashem says to Cain, the bloods of your brother calling upon me, the generations ahead. Moshe is actually 3 Gilgulim, 3 reincarnation, Mem, Moshe, Shin, Shet, and Hey, Hevel. And it took all those Egyptians, so to speak, that wanted to convert them to become Hebrew, because he could see that their neshamot is sparks of Hevel. And when he took them out, when he went to receive the Torah, as we know, he was late, according to the Erev Rav, in 6 hours, Boshesh Lavo. And of course, the Erev Rav created a golden calf. It says, Vayara am ki boshesh Moshe laredet min nahar, vayakhel ha'am al Aharon. Ha'am, by the way, every time the Torah says ha'am, it doesn't speak of the Bnei Israel, it speaks of the Erev Rav. Am or ha'am, the nation or these nation, it's actually speak of the Erev Rav. And whenever Hashem speaks of the people of Israel, it says Ami, my nation, or Bnei Israel, the people of Israel. So here they said, Vayamru elav kum aselanu Elohim asher yelchu lefanenu. These 2 magicians were actually the children of Bilam, the wicked Bilam, the one that was actually advising Pharaoh to kill all the babies. His 2 children, Eunius and Umbrius, were amazing magicians, power of Tumah, impurity, the highest level, like their father. They wanted to kill Aharon. They already killed Hur. Hur was killed by them. Also, the 70 Sanhedrin, the 70 elderly, was killed. And they were about to kill Aharon. Says, if you don't help us, we'll kill you too. And Aharon understood. The Gemara says, if a prophet and a Kohen dies in the same day, there's a huge delay of Mashiach. Maybe it will never come. So he actually helped them by his hoping to delay the process so Moshe will come on time. And when he basically took the gold and he threw it into the fire, this boy, Micha, took this gold task and threw it with him. He was helping actually the Eunius and Umbrius. By the way, they were 5 and 4 years old, the Gemara will tell us. And then came this golden calf that starts speaking. Why? Because this task that Micha stole and threw in has the name of Hashem. And he says, Ele Elohecha Israel asher elucha me'eretz Mitzrayim. It starts speaking. This is the Micha that Moshe said. Later on even, this Micha in the book of Judges, we'll see that he actually will be the one to build Avodah Zarah, idolatry against the Mishkan, the tabernacle, and he would actually hire the grandson of Moshe, Yonatan ben Gershom, to be the Kohen there. David HaMelech saw that later on he will save him. This is in the book of Shoftim, if I'm not mistaken, chapter 17. So we see that Moshe did not understand that. By the way, this Micha was one of the leaders of Tower of Babel. That's his neshama. Of course, then he'll die accordingly. But of course, Moshe Rabbeinu, he doesn't do anything in order to really have the understanding how to pull the people of Israel out of Egypt. Because you know, the people of Israel out of Egypt, when Hashem says to him, I'm going to take them out, I will take them out with a lot of power, you know, meaning that, you know, the way they will come out, the Torah use really the four, you know, words of Geula. You know, the four words of Geula is really, it's how Hashem is going to take them out. You know, Hashem says, say to them that I will take them out with the word Vehetzalti, and I save them, Vega'alti, I'll redeem them, and I'll take them, Velakachti, I will take them out, Vehotzeti. So really, this is also the corresponding to the 4 cups that we drink on Leil HaSeder, is to remind us of the 4 Geulot. And this is really, in a sense, there is a 5th one. Hashem says, Veheveti, and I'll bring them in the future. This is really the 5th glass of wine that we don't drink, we leave to Elijah. So really, this speaks of also the redemption that will come in days to come. You know, Bekarov, soon, Be'ezat Hashem. You know, the bringing out of the people of Israel is really the days of Mashiach of that time, to take them out of all over the world from slavery, bring them to the land of Israel, give them the Torah before, show them the miracles of the 10 plagues, show them the miracles of the Red Sea, show them the creation of the land of Israel, everything that the man in the desert, the clouds of glory, the well of Miriam, there's all miracles, you know, until Moshe, most of everything that happened to our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, was by nature. It wasn't like miracles like this, and they never complained. That's why Moshe was complaining. He says, I don't understand how to explain that. Really, the word Lama is also an acronym, Le'arot Ma'aseh Hashem. I want to show your greatness, Hashem. Explain to me. And of course, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to him, I want you to know that they're about to be taken out of Egypt, as we know, it says the Torah that they will not believe Moshe, because, you know, Hashem did it on purpose, that the heart of Pharaoh will be hardened, you know, 5 times by Hashem, 5 times by Pharaoh. And of course, when he says to him, Moshe, he says to Hashem, Vaydaber Moshe, Ken el Bnei Israel. What's Ken? Meaning in a very positive way. He says to them, listen, you're about to be redeemed. The people of Israel, the Torah says, Velo sham'u el Moshe mikotzer ruach ve'avoda kasha. So what's mikotzer ruach? So mikotzer gematria is 430. The people of Israel says it's not time to be redeemed. We understood from Avraham Avinu, when he received this promise, the covenant, Ben HaBetarim, and Abraham was walking between the 3 kosher animals that was slaughtered into half in his dream. Hashem says to him, from that moment, it will be 430 years when the people of Israel will come. And now it's only been 210. So the people of Israel says, it's not time for redemption. Imagine like going to somebody in jail and saying to him, listen, you're going to be redeemed, you know, you're going to be free. And he would say, but, you know, I've been judged to whatever amount of years. It's not time yet. That's the mentality they had. And Moshe says, no, it's ruach. It's almost ruach. Ruach in Gematria is 214. And this is really the, you know, in a sense, what Moshe was telling them, time has come. Because we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because of the work that they were enslaved day and night, the Torah says, Hashem actually took them out 210 years versus 400 years. So we see here that the people of Israel did not believe, and they understood that something is wrong here. But Moshe Rabbeinu, of course, is instructed by Hashem. He says, go, bo el paro. Bo, by the way, is also in Gematria 3, is what's going to be in Parashat Bo. There'll be 3 plagues. This parasha has 7 plagues, and next parasha has 3 plagues. Vaera, as we mentioned before, Vav Aleph, 7, which is the 7 plagues. Resh Aleph, Ra'u Avotenu, our forefathers will see in Egypt the 7 plagues. And of course, HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends back Moshe and Aaron. Vayidaber Adonai el Moshe ve'el Aaron. This is a very, very interesting verse. This verse in the Torah, our Torah has what we call chapters and verses, right? So we know that the chapter and verses in the Torah it's not just location of accidentally order. So this chapter 6, verse 13, 6:13. 6:13 is actually in what we call in Gematria Moshe ve'Aaron. Moshe ve'Aaron 613, alluding to the 613 mitzvot they will teach the people of Israel while they're in the desert after receiving the Torah. Moshe and Aaron, 613 in Gematria, and this location when Hashem speaks to Moshe and to Aaron is also 613. There are many, many things in 613, by the way, that kind of teaching us a lot of what HaKadosh Baruch Hu really from creation used this number. Because, the Torah has codes. The code of 613 is many words that Hashem uses in the Torah. If you say the word, and I created, right? Barati. Barati meaning 613 in Gematria. Et ha'or, the light, the Hebrew people, 613. Garti, when Yaakov says, I lived with Lavan, I kept Taryag mitzvot, 613. Begvurato, in the strength of Hashem, 613. Be'adarto, in his glory, 613. Batorah, the word Batorah in the Torah is 613. Everything is part of this immense divine codes. Our Torah is not just words that was given to Moshe and written by Moshe by the dictation of Hashem. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Gemara will tell us, created the Torah 974 generation before this world. And as I mentioned before, Moshe was the 26th generation. 26 plus 974 is 1,000. 1,000 years in our eyes is a day for Hashem. And when Moshe received the Torah, he started receiving it on Vav Besivan, right? Vav Besivan is really Matan Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu spent 120 days with Hashem, receiving the Torah, the entire Torah, Torah shebichtav, the written Torah, the Torah shebe'al peh, the oral Torah, all the halachot, all the midrashim, all that you need to know. The word midrash is Moshe Darash. Moshe taught us. Moshe Rabbeinu, when he received the Torah, in Masechet Avot, it says Moshe kibel Torah misinai, hu mesara leYeshua veYeshua laskanim, vaskanim laneviim. Moshe transferred this Torah to all factions of the people of Israel, from his so-called replacement leader, Joshua, and then he gave them Musar. Mesara is a Musar. And also, Kibel is the Kabbalah, the secrets. He transferred everything. So everybody, until today, we understand clearly how the Torah is. For an example, the Torah, when it comes to codes and numbers, if you take just the word Bereshit, is the entire mitzvot of the Torah. And if you take the last letter of the word Bereshit, Taf, and you count every 50 letters, you spell the word Torah. Same thing with the book of Shmot. from the Taf of Shemot, every 50 letters, it will spell the word Torah. The middle book, Vayikra, every Yud, you take the first Yud, every 7 letters, you see the name of Hashem, Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. Every 7 letters for the entire book of Vayikra. And from the book of Bamidbar and Devarim, it's backwards. From the first Taf, count 50, again Torah. Same book, Bamidbar. So you have a menorah of 4 Torah, and one in the middle, the Shamash, is Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. In a sense, Moshe Rabbeinu taught all of that to the people of Israel. And of course, Moshe now is instructed to start bringing upon the Egyptian the plagues. You know, as we mentioned, there's 7 plagues in the Torah right now, in this parasha. Of course, we know that Moshe Rabbeinu starts with the blood. Why did Hashem start with blood? So as we mentioned before, Moshe is reincarnation of Hevel. Cain is reincarnation of Pharaoh. And Pharaoh heard the bloods of the people of Israel. He's going to suffer with blood now. Also blood, just so you know, damim, the Gemara says, is money, is payments. So we know the people of Israel, the Gemara will tell us, they're actually, for 210 years, 260 years, 264 years, the people of Israel multiply from 70 to almost 15 million in Egypt. And they enslaved the majority of them for 210 years. And for really very bad, out of the 210 years, 86 years of avodat parach, day and night, men, women, children, everywhere. And they never paid them. Damim is payment for everybody. You know, the people of Israel, unlike the Egyptian, every water in the world, in Egypt and all over the world, turned into blood. But for the people of Israel, it was not. It was actually water. So when an Egyptian wanted to drink, it will come blood. They'll come to the Hebrew will hold it, it become water. They say, pay me. They will pay. Back and forth like this. You know, they said that each plague lasted 1 week and then 3 weeks break. Okay. This year, by the way, Moshe Rabbeinu is almost 80 years old. Aharon is actually 83 almost, and Miriam 86 almost. This year is the year of 2,447 to the Hebrew count. You know, they will come out next year, 2,448 on the 15th of Nisan. It will be exactly 400 years from the birth of Isaac. Yitzchak was born on Pesach, 15 of Nisan, which is basically 2048. Moshe Rabbeinu, as we know, was born on the 7th of Adar, right? And his mother could not hide him for 3 months. She put him after 6 months. She gave birth to him after he was only 6 months in pregnancy, and she brought him out to the world. And for the next 3 months, she actually raised him, and she could not hide him anymore because the Egyptian will come to every home to look for babies after 9 months. So she put him in the Yaor, in the Nilus, low ness, also a miracle for him, on the 6th day of Sivan. And of course, Batya will find him in the Teva. It's the same letters. And that's when the Torah will be given on the 6th of Sivan. Moshe Rabbeinu now instructed to make the river and every water to blood. Moshe says, I cannot do that because the Hakarat Tov, Moshe Rabbeinu, for the first 3 plagues, he could not participate because he recognized the gratitude he had to have to the river, right? And to the frog and to the kinim, the lice, because you know, the frogs lived in the river. And the lice was on dirt, on earth. And Moshe Rabbeinu was hidden also on earth. He says, I cannot be what we call not have gratitude. Aharon will be the one that would deliver those 3 plagues. So bloods, the people of Israel got paid for a month. Some say it was payment that almost covered the majority of slavery. You know, there's a water company in France called Evian. You probably heard of it. You know, it's very interesting. If you rearrange the word Evian, is naive. You know, some say the water is really just a regular tap water that they put in a bottle and sell it for, I don't know, 7,000%. You know, just a joke. But of course, Evian is also Evion. Me'ashpot yarim Evion. You know, the people of Israel raised from the bottoms of the bottoms. They were actually like the Egyptian almost. They reached the 49 gates of Tumah. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as we know, they suffered. What's the plagues come is to really, as a payment, as a measure for what all they suffered. So the blood comes, and of course, he says that the blood, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, made it in a way that he would basically begin the process from the bottom, what we call, of the sipping blood into the ground. Really, this is also to punish the neshama of Cain, which is Pharaoh now. And of course, many of the Egyptian people, their babies will die too. You know, they said that every woman in Egypt actually cheated on her husband. So every son she had was a Bechor. That's why most of the babies in Egypt, most of the people, Bechorot in Egypt, died. And Pharaoh did not understand how everybody's a Bechor. You know, there is always, as we know, one mother, but you never know how many fathers. Very, very interesting. So we see Moshe Rabbeinu is coming and does the so-called blood, and Aharon is the one that used the staff, you know, and after all said and done, we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is now letting the people of Israel, as measure for measure, to be paid for this water. And after all said and done, he said that the second plague, Moshe Rabbeinu was instructed in Aharon to bring the frogs. By the way, they were not simple frogs like we know today. The Zohar Kadosh says there were frogs that had unbelievable power. Some of them had teeth like lions and claws like bears, and they spit acid, and they were like monsters kind of thing. You know, today we see a lot of Hollywood movies using that kind of amazing, you know, caricature for this kind of frog. They said that this is really, those frogs did a lot of damage. They were actually also sacrificed their life. The Gemara will tell us that these frogs did Kiddush Hashem. They went into the ovens of the Egyptian, meaning that they did Cheruf Shamayim on the Shem Hashem in order to sanctify themselves for the holiness of Hashem. And the question is asked, you know, our friends, Rabbi Roth from the Kanievsky family, Yibadel Chaim Arukim, Tzara Torah, it says that the Sefer HaChasidut asked a question. It says why the frog was not rewarded as the dogs were rewarded. Because, you know, the frogs sacrificed their lives. The dog just did not bark when the people of Israel left. The Rabbi Gaon from Vilna brings something amazing. It says that actually it's harder to keep your mouth shut than to sacrifice your life. Meaning, he was telling us, he says, look, if you take example, Lot. Lot was the nephew of Avraham Avinu, was the brother of Sarai. When Sarai meant when Abraham and Lot went to Egypt, Abraham basically lied, right? He said to Pharaoh, this is my sister. Lot could easily, was taking advantage of the situation and tell Pharaoh, he's lying, that's my sister, it's his wife, and they will kill Abraham, and Lot would receive all the fortune of Abraham. But he was quiet. He did not say a word. And for that silence, he actually merited to have from him Ruth the Moabite. And from Ruth will come the kings of Israel and the Mashiach of Israel, Mashiach ben David, for the silence of Lot. And we see here the dogs, when the people of Israel came out, did not bark. And for that, we feed them all the time. Even Eliyahu Navi, when he took the 450 prophets in the Carmel, the false prophets, he fed them to the dogs as a thank you for not speaking, for not barking, and because the people of Israel left Egypt early in the morning. And dogs barks. If you walk by them, no matter what time of day, they bark, especially at night, early in the morning. So continue here. After that, of course, this third was the kinim, the lice. You know, it's very, very interesting. The Zohar Kadosh says that for the two plagues, the first, the blood and the frogs, the Unius and Imbrius, the magician of Egypt, the sons of Bilam, could copy that, but in a trickery. Not the same. It was really achizat enayim. It was magic. But when it comes to the lice, they could not do it. So the Zohar Kadosh says something amazing. He says that they used demons, you know, shedim, as power of tumah. You know, Hashem always have powers of impurity and powers of purity in the world. There's times when the purity takes over, Baruch Hashem, and there's times, unfortunately, when the impurity takes over. And they used these so-called shedim, these demons, that had 3 fingers. These 3 fingers. Okay? Chachmei Kabbalah, the Kabbalah rabbis say something amazing. They said those demons could not pick up a lice. Lice is too small to pick up with fingers like this. You always have to use the thumbs, right? The thumbs and the finger. To pick up anything tiny, you use these 2. They didn't have that. That's why they say, Etzba Elohim Hi. This is the finger of God, metaphorically, but finger, Etzba Elohim Hi, it's really Etzba is an acronym, En Tzorech B'dikao. There is no need to check anymore. This is above nature now. This is from God. By the way, that's why later on they'll join the people of Israel. They wanted to learn more magic from Moshe and Aharon, how they did all that. And we see, by the way, the people and angels have 5 fingers. The Zohar says something amazing. You know, the 5 fingers that we have, right? This is the 5 fingers. We have what we call agudal, the thumb, right? And it's corresponding to the 5 senses that we have in our body. The thumb we used to taste, right? What babies, right? They put the finger in their mouth, is they use the thumb. The etzba, this finger, is for the smell. We always clean our nose with it, right? Or we smell things. And ama, this one, right, is to touch. And the kmitza, this one, is for seeing. That's why when you have something in your eye, you always use this, like, because it's the cleanest finger out of all. And for hearing is the zeret, the little one, right, to hear, clean your ears with it. So it says these are 5 corresponding fingers with our senses. You know, the word chamisha, that's why we have 5 books of Torah, right? Chamisha is keneged the 5 senses. You have to do and learn Torah with your 5 senses. Chamisha is also simcha, right? Ivdu et Hashem besimcha. You know, they say when you do a mitzvah with happiness, is 10-fold more than just a regular mitzvah. And of course, we know that also besimcha is b'machshava. Chamisha is also b'machshava, to think about what you do, have a kavana. And of course, we know that when we have the tefillin, when men put on tefillin, we know that there is 2 components. There's one of the head that has 4 parshiot, has 4 particles in it, and 4 different portions. And the hands has 1, right? On the hand, you put only 1. Why? The 4 senses are in the head, which is basically the taste, the smell, the sight, and the hearing. And for the hand, there is the touch, the mishush. This is corresponding to the 4 and 1 parasha, the 5 parashot of the tefillin. Of course, we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is very much now bringing those 7 plagues in order to measure for what the Egyptian and Pharaoh did to the people of Israel. And of course, the Gemara will tell us in Masechet Eduyot, Rabbi Akiva would say that the judgment of the Egyptian was for 12 months. And he says, Rashaim, wicked people, they are actually judged for 12 months after they die. That's why we say Kaddish for 12 months. On the other hand, we, the Sephardim, we only say Kaddish for 11 months because we don't believe that a Hebrew person, a Jewish person, will be a wicked. So we're trying to give them the benefit of the doubt, and we don't compare them to the 12 months trial, so to speak. And of course, because Pharaoh, as we know, he denies Hashem. Remember, this is a new Pharaoh. That's not the same Pharaoh that, was before Vayakam Melech Hadash. This is a new Pharaoh that he says, Vayomer Paro, Mi Adonai Asher Eshma Bekolo Leshalech et Israel. Who is this God that I need to listen to him? I don't know him. Velo Yadati et Adonai. Of course, HaKadosh Baruch Hu saw the ego of Pharaoh. Pharaoh, as we mentioned in the Gemara, Masechet Moed Katan, it was a dwarf, a black dwarf, less than 50, 60 centimeters. Some say about 1 amad, the Gemara says. And he denies Hashem. He has such an ego. The Zohar Kadosh says, in order to break an ego of an Egyptian king, you have to use the 10 Sefirot. You have to break every Sefirah, because ego is built of 10 Sefirot. It's very, very interesting. The word ego in Hebrew is actually Gematria 10. Aleph, Gimel, and Vav, right? Ego, Aleph, Gimel, Vav is 10. You have to break the ego with 10 plagues, the 10 Sefirot, the 10 plagues corresponding to those 10 plagues. And of course, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I want you to know these 10 plagues that I bring upon you, which is from the Keter, the crown from the top, through the wisdom, through the neshama, through the understanding, through the severity, through the ruach, the spirit, through the kindness, the chesed, through the tiferet, the beauty, through the victory, the netzach, through the splendor, the hod, and through the yesod. Really, that's how you defeat the kingship of Egypt. And the 10 plagues came to defeat Pharaoh in his own game. Of course, that's why he says, Aseret Makot Mitzrayim. It's very, very interesting. In all the 9 plagues, it never says Makkah. Only in Makat Bechorot. Very, very interesting. Moshe Rabbeinu was instructed by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How HaKadosh Baruch Hu started this whole process is really mocking Pharaoh. Pharaoh used to say, I'm the king of the Nile. I'm the god of the Nile. I'm the god of the world of Egypt. And he says, I never go to the bathroom. As a god, we don't need to go to the bathroom. But of course, he was lying. He would go early before sunrise to the Nile to do what he needs to do, goes to the bathroom. The Torah says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu instructed Moshe to always go to Pharaoh early in the morning. The Torah says, Vayomer Adonai el Moshe hashkem baboker vehityatzeb lifnei Paro. Hashem says to Moshe, rise before sunrise and go to Pharaoh and meet him where? Hine yotze hamayma. He's going to the Nile to relieve himself. Technically, Moshe Rabbeinu was catching Pharaoh with his pants down. Says to him, what are you doing? I thought you're God. You're going to the bathroom, you tell all your people. And by that, he was disturbing and reducing Pharaoh's ego to nothing. And that's why the Zohar says, Hashem says 5 times, V'achabed et lev Paro, and I will make his heart in his heart. And Pharaoh was hard in his heart 5 times. Because Pharaoh, the original Pharaoh, when he actually kidnapped Sarah, Hashem punished him with 5 plagues of those 10 plagues that we'll have now. And for the other 5, Hashem has to harden us because he already knew what happened before. We understood what happened before. That's why, by the way, Sarah was taken for 36 days, and each plague was for a week on Pharaoh and his people. And after that, after 5 plagues is 30 days, the 6th week, he gave up and he actually gave a fortune to Abraham, and to Sarah he gave Goshen, and he also gave his daughter Hagar to be with the people of Israel. It says, I'd rather you be a slave to the Hebrew rather than a queen in Egypt to the Arabs. So here, Moshe Rabbeinu is basically comes to him with his pants down, so to speak. Pharaoh was so ashamed. He understood now you cannot mess with Moshe. And of course, that's why we mentioned only 5 times. It says, Vayechazek lev paro, right? And Adonai chizek et lev paro. This is 5 and 5 is the 10. The Zohar Kadosh says that really this each plague, so we know we have so far the blood, we have the frog, we have the lice. Then Hashem brought the arov. Arov was a wild beast. It says something amazing. You know, they say Hashem sends 5 kinds of wild beast, and they said that each family, each mother had at least 5 boys that were bechorot, because she slept with 5 different men in Egypt. And those kind of 5 animals came. There were lions that would come and take 1 son. There were wolves, that was Zehevim, that will take 1. There'll be a tiger that will take 1. There'll be a bear that will take 1, an eagle that will take 1. They said they came upon against the 5 times that Pharaoh hardened his own heart. Of course, Hashem wanted this to be, this is a preconceived notion in order to really bring them to the place that they thought they could escape from. Because, you know, when they threw the babies to the water, they say Hashem will not bring a flood, so let's use the water as a punishment. But, you know, when Moshe Rabbeinu says to Pharaoh, we're just going to go out for 3 days and celebrate to Hashem, only for 3 days. That was meant to be really to draw Pharaoh and all his soldiers to the Sea of Reeds, to drown in them, as a measure for measure too. Of course, after this wild beast was a dever. Dever was actually a sickness that killed all their animals, the horses, the donkeys, the camels, the cows, the sheep, everything was killed. By the way, none of the plagues were in the land of Goshen for the Hebrew people. Only around Egypt and around the world. Some said the whole world suffered from this. And of course, after that, it was the Shechin. Shechin is horrific. You know, it's called a babuot. This is your skin is burning and cold, and there's nothing you can do. Imagine like being burnt at the worst level, and there's nothing you can do. Your skin is peeling, and it's actually sometimes it feels like 5,000 degrees, and first below sometimes it's really freezing and heat. By the way, this is the Zohar Kadosh says that's how. Unfortunately, people that go to Gehenom, to hell, will be suffering like this. But our sages say something amazing. It says Hashem stopped this every Shabbat. They don't suffer on Shabbat. But it says 6 months in fire, minimum, 6 months in freezing, minimum. Some could take 1,000 years, some we don't know. Of course, the next plague was the plague of Barad. Barad, by the way, was hell that came from the heavens. It was, some say, the Zohar Kadosh and the Gemara says, it was like a mix, like atomic bomb that was mixed with stone, with hell, fire, and gofrit. It was like almost like a substance that would be like atomic bomb, like it would destroy everything. But this is something amazing. This is, by the way, the same thing that was used on Sodom and Gomorrah. That's why until today, nothing grows there. And of course, we know that only in this plague, Moshe Rabbeinu did something different than the rest of the plague. He actually, when he rose his hand to the heavens and asked, because every plague, Moshe Rabbeinu, Pharaoh says, please stop and I'll let your people go. Then he changed his mind, back and forth. Of course, in this plague, Moshe actually lifted his hand, but he actually asked this plague to stay in its condition for the future, to be actually brought down again in the days of Joshua. Because in the days of Joshua, in the Midrash Joshua, Midrash Yoshua, it says, Vayechdelu hakolot ve'abarad u'matar lo natach arza. It remains in above, the skies. And then הוטל עליהם בין שמיים וארץ to remain there, עד שבא יהושע ונלחם עם אותם מלכים. When Joshua came and went to war against 31 kings, and he said, only then Hashem brought back this plague of Bara, this hell with atomic substance on those 31 kings and the soldiers. The Torah says, it says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu המטיר עליהם, שנאמר רבים אשר מתו מאבני הברד ואשר מתו בחרב. So more people died from this plague than the sword. And it says, והנשאר ימטיר הקדוש ברוך הוא על גוג ומגוג. So we see in the future, we are really at the opening of Gog and Magog. Gog and Magog in Gematria, it's 70. It's the war that would basically conclude this world, will take 2/3 of the people of this world will be dead, 1/3 would remain. It will be Gog and Magog 70 against the 70 nations that will be participating in this war. Some said the Gemara will tell us that it's actually going to start between a king of what we call Persia, a king of Iran, and a king of Edom, a king of Christianity. They will fight, and then 70 nations join them, and they all come to fight Israel. The war will begin in the Galilee of Israel. Some say it's brought to us in the Kabbalah, in the Zohar. And we see here that's really this barad, this hell that's still not done, will become and demolish and destroy Gog and Magog. All the warriors, the military, this is really atomic bomb before atomic was discovered by Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein, another Jewish man that actually created the formula to create the atomic bomb. He never knew that they'll use it for this kind. He did it more for, powerful plants and stuff to produce electricity, but it would be used like we see today, Iran, that's what they're trying to do. But don't worry, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Matzilenu miyadam, shebechol dor vador, every generation we have another stupid so-called leaders of the world trying to go against Israel. The HaKadosh Baruch Hu saves us, so don't worry. Of course, this is the 7th plague that we. In the next week parasha, there'll be 3 other plagues. Zohar HaKadosh says something amazing. It says, Kol hamakot she'HaKadosh Baruch Hu al Mitzrayim atid lavi al Edom. Hashem is going to do, it says in the book of Yeshaya 23, it says, Kol elu asara otot she'asa HaKadosh Baruch Hu, all those 10 plagues that God did on Egypt come from the hand Yad HaChazaka. In this parasha, we don't have this term, Yad HaChazaka. Yad HaChazaka was used in the last parasha, in the last verse in the book of Shmot. If I'm not mistaken, in the last verse, yes. It says, Hashem says, Vayomer Adonai el Moshe, Ata tereh, Ata means now. Meaning, Moshe in the future, what's HaMashiach? Is Moshe Chai. Moshe will be the Mashiach. And he will come and he will see. And he'll say, what do you will see? Asher esel Pharaoh, meaning to all the people that go against Israel. Ki beyad chazaka yeshalchem, uveyad chazaka yegarsham me'arzo. This is really the redemption of all the Jewish people that will be sent from their countries all over the world, that we are now separated, right? We are all in the Gaulah. Hashem will come and we have the Aleph of Gaulah, Geula, redemption. Moshe, as we know, when Hashem killed all the Egyptians, drowning them in the sea of reeds, something amazing. The Torah says, Az Yashir Moshe, Az Yashir. In the future, Moshe, not then he sang. If you says he sang, Vayashir Moshe, right? He sang. He did not say he sang. He says, Az Yashir. In the future, he will sing. The Zohar Kadosh says, really, these 10 plagues goes against the 10th commandment. Each plague is what, as we mentioned before, because of what when Hashem gave the 10th commandment, some say it's for the entire world. even the goyim, because it's none of them, except one, except the Shabbat, all of them is related to the goyim. It says that when Hashem brought the blood, is against Anochi Hashem. Blood, right? The DNA in every human. DNA, if you write in Hebrew, is Adonai. Is the signature of God. Every DNA has the sequencing of God. Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. The space between each of the connectors between the two heliases is 0.00000 point Yud, 10. 0.000 point Hey, 5. 0.000 point 6 Vav, and 0.000 point 5 Yud He Vav He. The signature of God in is every DNA. That's why it says in the Torah, Bereshit bara Elohim et. Et in Hebrew rearrange ta, the cell. The cell, you can create a whole person from one cell. The entire body could be produced from one cell. Why? Because the genetic code of God. This is really in a sense. So it says, Anochi, Hashem is against the blood, makat, blood, the blood plague. The second one, lo hiye lecha, you shall not have other God. This is the frogs that came to show all of them. How can you deny God? We are activated by God. Lo hiye lecha, lo tisa, don't, carry the name of Hashem in vain. Even the lice, came to help. Lice is something you can barely see sometimes, not to mention even their eggs. Hashem says, the Gemara, he take care of the eggs of the lice. Incredible. Zachor, remember the Shabbat. This is really Arov, don't mix. The Arov is also Eruv, right? Zachor, as we said, remember that. Kabed, respect your Et. Et is Elohim and Torah. Respect everything that God created from Aleph through Taf. And of course, this is against the Makat Dever, is the hell. The hell is actually going to be here for many, many years until soon, Be'ezat Hashem, maybe this week, Mashiach will be appeared and Gog and Magog will start and we can go back to the land of Israel. Lo tirtzach, you shall not murder. This is the shchin, this is the plague of the ababuot. The burning. The next one, lo tinaf, right? You should not sleep with somebody who is not allowed to you, only your merited wife or husband. It says this is really the barad, the hell. I'm sorry, before it was dever. By the way, this says the worst thing is why it has a fire in this plague is it says a person that sleeps with a married woman not allowed to be burned in hell. Almost you cannot come back from it. Esh gechalim becheko. It says in the book of Mishlei, V'chen haba al eshet ish. This is in Mishlei 6. Lo tignov, it's against the locust, because they used to steal and the locust came and diminished everything. Lo ta'aneh, you should not torture. This is against the plague of darkness. And lo tachmod, the last one, right? Don't covet something that's not yours. This is against the plague of Bechorot, against the plague of the firstborn. So, of course, we know the plague was given, 10 of them. 3 by the hands of Aharon, the blood, the frog, and the lice. 3 by the hands of Moshe, the barad, the arbe, and the choshech, the hail, the locust, and the darkness, because they were in the air. And the 3 was brought by Hakadosh Baruch Hu, the Arov, the Dever, and the Makad Bechorot, the wild beasts, the Dever, which is the sickness, and the plague of Bechorot, the firstborn by Hashem. And one of them was brought by all 3, by Hashem, by Moshe, and by Aaron. That was the Shechin. This is the so-called skin condition that was burning. So we see that really Kadosh Baruch Hu, the Rambam called the Sefer of Shemot, the book of Exodus, is the Gola and Geula. This is the beginning of the resurrection, the beginning of the redemption. Even though we see darkness, light always there. That's why even in creation, Vayerev, Vahi Boker, Yom Echad. Even though there is darkness, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. So Be'ezat Hashem, I wish you all that you find the light in your heart to make tshuva and to bring Mashiach. And Be'ezat Hashem, again, I want to thank Mr. and Mrs. Selwyn Isaac, co-partners in TORAH Foundation. God bless them. They're doing an amazing, amazing job. We're entering the 11th year of this foundation. We reach about 1,500 cities around the world. With this, it's also part of the Shabbat project. Millions and millions of people participate of the worldwide Shabbat. Again, we want to thank them so much. We're proud to be part of them for the last 5 years. And again, I want to thank all of you for being with us. Please share the class with everybody. I'm Rabbi Yoram Dahan from Kolel Baruch Avat Israel, again, on behalf of partners in TORAH Foundation. I thank you so much for being with us. We'll see you tomorrow, Be'ezat Hashem. I thank you so much. Again, our website, if you want to see some more classes or, take some of our Torah, I'll be happy. We have that in English, in Hebrew, some in Spanish, neshatorah.org. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of the week, Be'ezat Hashem.